Hi, I'm Robert Barwick, Research Director of the Australian Citizens Party. This is the first time I've made a video like this for my channel because of what's happened yesterday. Today's Christmas Eve in Australia, 24th of December. Yesterday, under the cover of Christmas, the Attorney-General of this country, Mark Dreyfus, betrayed all Australian citizens, and he betrayed us to the United States. And the way he did it is he approved, under the cover of Christmas, the extradition of an Australian citizen, Dan Duggan, who is a father of 6, to the United States on the trumped up indictment about training he gave to Chinese pilots in South Africa briefly back in 2012. And at the time Duggan provided that training, and this was training at the South African Test Flight Academy, it was training to pilots to train other pilots. They weren't military pilots he trained, but that's not even the point. In 2012, nobody was talking about war with China. Nobody was talking about conflict with China. The Chinese president 2 years later, in 2014, was invited to Australia by our then Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, to address our parliament. Given the honour of addressing our parliament, we signed a free trade agreement with that country. So 2 years earlier, what Dan Duggan did was perfectly normal. But in 2017, people came to positions of power in the United States who want a war with China, led by one of the most evil fiends in the world today, Mike Pompeo, who was then CIA director and then later Secretary of State. And these people will blow up the world. They don't care. And he's a religious nutcase to boot. They will literally blow up the world thinking they're fulfilling some stupid biblical prophecy that puts the United States as the most important country God ever created. They will blow up the world to stop the rise of China. And so because Dan Duggan is a naturalised Australian citizen, was a former Top Gun, US Navy Top Gun, he was naturalised on January 26, 2012, before he provided this training. So he was an Australian citizen when he provided this training. They decided that they will reach out with America's extraterritorial judicial reach, where they think they can grab anybody in the world anytime for anything, and grab this guy and make an example of him. Dan Duggan was later arrested in 2022 and is dropping his kids off to school. And he's been in jail, despite having faced no Australian charges ever, for 2 years and 2 months, while awaiting for the outcome of this extradition request. The reason Dreyfus has done this under the cover of Christmas is because the extradition does not pass the first basic test, which is called dual criminality. Dual criminality means you can only be extradited for something that's a crime in both countries. And what he's been accused of by the Americans is not a crime in Australia, because we don't have those laws that they've decided to apply to him. But weirdly, under Australia's extradition treaty with the United States, and whoever agreed to this was an utter lunatic, and I think it was the Hawke government back in the 1980s. The test of dual criminality can only be tested in a US court. So you've got to be extradited before it can be tested whether you are applicable to be extradited. This is lunacy stuff. However, Dreyfus didn't have to apply that test. He could have just protected an Australian citizen and his family. And instead, he has chosen to give the United States what it wants. And the real lesson here for Aussies is that your government will not protect you if the country coming after you is the United States. That's the issue. Our governments are supposed to protect us. Anytime an Australian gets in trouble overseas, we're assuming the Australian embassy and the consulate and the Australian government will do what it can to help. But if the country that wants to get you is the United States, your government will not protect you. This is not a sovereign country. This is an outrageous decision, and all Australians should be furious. So look, I'm going to put in the links below how you can help this Australian family. One way is to share this video, get it around everywhere. They need financial support. The lawyers who've been working for them, led by Bernard Collaery, the former Attorney-General of the ACT, have been working essentially for free. They hope to get paid one day, but the family has had no money. If you follow this story, you know one of the reasons they had no money is because Dan Duggan's wife, Safrine, tried to sell her property. She had a rural property in southern New South Wales, and she had an agreement, a contract to sell it for $4.2 million. And the day before it was due to settle, the US government took it to court, got it frozen under proceeds of crime, even though the total amount of money that Dan Duggan earned, on which he paid tax, for training those pilots in 2012 was $180,000. And so at most, that's the proceeds of crime, if it's proven. The Duggan family offered to quarantine $180,000 of the proceeds of this sale so they could have money to fight the legal defense. But the great United States, the most powerful country on earth, cannot handle a legal level playing field. They are insisting that this Aussie family have their hands tied behind their backs while they try and fight them in court. And so they are destitute, they are bankrupt, they cannot afford proper legal defense. And now this is going to America. They have to pay American lawyers because unlike the Australian lawyers, these American lawyers are not going to work for free at all. Aussies need to get behind this family. This is about Australian sovereignty. This is about demanding our government protect our citizens. You can tell I'm furious. I've been following this case for the 2 years that it's been active. There's a massive principle at stake here. Aussies, get behind this family. Share this video as widely as possible. And please make a donation at the link below. Help them as much as you can. And email, I'll provide the 2 emails for Mark Dreyfus and the link where you can send a message to Anthony Albanese and express your outrage and demand Albanese overrule Mark Dreyfus and stop this travesty of justice, please.